I'm attempting to turn the first car that I ever owned, this 1970 Chevelle, into a NASCAR-inspired street car. I didn't have the pennies for a real NASCAR engine, so I went to the next best thing, the Ford Coyote. We're going to be putting a Ford engine into the 1970 Chevelle. On this episode, we are going to attach our GM 400 transmission to the Coyote. Then we're going to shred the Chevelle apart to see if we can get this Coyote to fit. Time to pull the motor 482 times. Well, I hope we don't have to do it that many times. That would suck. That's junk. This is a huge episode, but by the end of it, we'll have this engine in the car, bracketed up, ready to rock and roll. Let's dive in, put the Coyote in the Chevelle. This episode's brought to you by the team at Auto Metal Direct.
Drop in the hammer!
First thing on the docket is I have to remove some material off our Turbo 400 so I can adapt a reed bell housing to it. This modular bell housing will help us adapt the Turbo 400 to the Coyote. We'll be using an Extreme Automatics adapter to put the reed part to the transmission. The assembly is then bolted to the front of the pump on the Turbo 400. I loosely tighten all the bolts and then torque to 150 inch-pounds. Now the big moment, we're going to slide it on over and bolt it to the Coyote. Oh, yeah. Now that we got the 400 bolted to the Coyote with the reed case and the Extreme Automatics adapter, let's go ahead and start working on our engine mount. I'm gonna go ahead and make some plates and some perches, so once we get this in there, we can start tying it into the frame. What we are doing here is measuring our bolt hole to bolt hole spacing and then the outside dimensions for our shape. Now that I have all my dimensions, I'm gonna go ahead and use a program called QCAD to draw a two-dimensional design. It's just a shape on the outside with all my bolt holes perfectly spaced. And from there, I'm gonna put it on my plasma table and cut this thing out. Anytime I use my plasma for nicer parts, I usually have to bring them over to the drill bit and kind of just clean them up and deburr a bit. I have a chamfer tool I'll drill down and clean up all the holes, which you'll see me do here. All right, we got a little plate McGee over here, and everything was mint. I did notice that the other side of the Coyote is totally different, so let's take this, bring it on the other side with our measuring tools, and hopefully it's not too different. We can just section out whatever part doesn't need to be there. We're gonna get in and get it seated because what I'm trying to do is figure out where I'm gonna put our little bushing and attach it to. I'm running out of space pretty quickly on how the headers are gonna come down and yada yada, so I'm gonna try to get the motor mount here. I also noticed our pickup point for the weight was here, so I'm gonna try to see where it is here with the transmission. I'll try to center it, make our motor mount kind of tie to the center of the weight, get it in the car, and then we can see how much we can offset our little bushing. And then from there I can start making our plates to it. So this is actually really exciting. This is gonna be cool once we get everything all bolted in. Let's move forward and check the other side. So see what this thing needs. Bolt spacing is the same, the bottom and the top. We're gonna get rid of this one. That's junk. There's this odd one coming over from here. 5.48. We're gonna go right from this one, 5.48. You know what I realized? This thing is like two Honda engines opposed. I'm starting to like this thing more and more the more I play with it. Like, look at this. It's actually pretty short. What a wild machine, man. I can't wait to hear what this thing sounds like. We're gonna have to play with the exhaust because I hear these things sound like trumpets if you don't do them right. So I'll have to figure out some way to make a gnarly X pipe and then dive it all together and make some boom tubes or something because I don't want it to sound like a I want it to sound like it's actually mean. All right, so we're gonna come in here and make some little adjustments. The top bolt is gonna be gone. So we're gonna toodaloo that on down to Toodaloo Town. And then from there, oh yeah, look at that. Boom, boom, get rid of all that, get rid of that. We don't need it, we don't need it. And then from there, I'm gonna add this bolt hole here, make our adjustments, and let's print it up. The only thing I'm worried about is I hope we have some scrap-a-roonies. I think right there in that corner, we got it. All right, so we have the plate. I'm gonna go ahead and prep this. I won't bore you guys with the details. I'm just gonna brush it with my little contour pad. We'll have ourselves a nice piece. All right, okay, first one's in. Oh, boys. Oh, got three. Do we have four? Can't laugh yet. Usually when it's loose, it's all fit. It's when it gets real tight. Let's see if we can drive this in. Oh, okay, we got it. Okay, so that's awesome. So now we have our plate. Now that we have our plate, I think my idea is I put the other plate in and we have to actually put the engine in. I can't just wing it with where I put my little sockets or my polyurethane bushings. I want it to be strategic so I'm not in the way of anything. So let's get the plates on. So I drop the motor in loosely. We got this kit. This is a basic, generic kind of build-your-own motor mount kit. It's really cool. Poly bushings pressed into these sleeves, and then from there, I put the sleeve anywhere I want, right? And now I have a bolt hole that I can attach to the frame. So this is gonna take up some of our vibration and also give us a perch that we can weld to. But what I don't want to do is just haphazardly kind of put it in here because I feel like this is gonna get tight. So I'm gonna go ahead and put the engine in and figure out where in space this is gonna go. What happens when you make big power, you can actually pull the sleeves of the block, actually distort it from this thing trying to rip out. So what we're gonna do later on, once we get it in, is we're gonna build our own front plate with these poly bushings as well. I'll figure out once I get all my accessories on where this comes out, and we'll have this welded to the frame as well with a bushing. Now that I got all the old motor mounts out of the way and everything pretty much prepped, it is time to take the Coyote and put it in for the first time. So far, getting this thing in has been a breeze and gets me pretty hopeful, but I haven't really seen what it looks like once we popped it in. I tucked her up, and we're gonna put the cross member in it. Ooh, watch my fingers. And I'm gonna use this as the base of how we start getting our adjustments. Okay, let's drop it on. Now there's gonna be a lot when we actually get into it. We're getting close to do the final stuff. But what I wanna do now is come in here and actually find out where we're gonna put it this way for our engine mount. But really when we get down to it, when it comes time to dive in, we gotta level the car, set the ride height, ping a laser off the rear diff to really get this thing where I want it. But for now, this is what I'm looking for. Where are we gonna put our little socket? And I think right off the back edge here, straight down, will give us a perch right to this straight shot to it. 1 5/8 tube to our socket and make that tight as we possibly can. That's good, so we got some overlap here. So let's go see what the other side looks like. And this one right here, same thing. So we'll have a straight shot right to our frame. Nice little pocket. Okay, that's perfect. Let's start designing something to ride off that. Heading back out with the old Yeehaw McGraw on the attempt to finish off these motor mounts. All right, now we're gonna make the tabs here. Tabs are gonna ride up, hook these holes with these sleeves, and I'm gonna get it as close as I possibly can because we don't have that much room. Tie these in, one on each side, and then we'll box it. Then from there, we'll just duplicate it on this side. It's pretty basic shape, triangular with a hole, tab it in, and we're good to go. So let's measure it up. What I'm measuring for now is the total length and the width of our perch that's gonna hold our new polyurethane bushing. I'm gonna create 2 tabs that are gonna hook onto and hold this cylindrical tube. And from there, I'm gonna send it off to the plasma table and have it cut. Then I use my mini belt sander to clean off the edges. Then I use my large belt sander to finally finish off the top. But we had a little bit of a problemo at the same time. Oh no! It's all done! Turn this on. Oh my god. Oh, cooked. Absolutely cooked. Now this is the fun part. Once I had both tabs created, I placed them together using the tube, and then I put a bolt through with a nut, clamped it together, and put it on our new faceplate. I then proceeded to weld the side and the opposite side and took everything out welded on the inside, which you don't see in the video. Once I finished the weld, I did the same thing to the opposing side. Once both units were welded, I went ahead and popped together our polyurethane mounts after I cooled down the sockets. Once the assemblies were done, it was time to put it back onto the Coyote. We're gonna rest it. Now we gotta get the car level so we can actually start mocking this thing up. Now that we have everything kind of resting, this is gonna be the hard part. We have to get the car level, take all our measurements, figure out our drivable angles, and put this thing where it needs to be, and then take any metal away from anything that's gonna be in the way. Okay, now we are at the big moment. We have to figure out how we're gonna make this thing actually work. Now that we have it in the background, I actually lowered the car. I did a lot of work with making the ride height where I wanted it. If you guys notice, it's a lot different. It's almost down 1.5 inches in the back, but this is the stance I want to go. So in life, I can bring the whole thing up, but this is kind of how I wanted the body to flow. Are you rebuilding your own hot rod but struggling to find quality classic restoration parts? What if I told you I had the fix? All you have to do is type in www.autometaldirect.com to bring you to the premier manufacturer of high quality restoration parts for classic American cars and trucks. They got it all, my friend, and I mean they got it all. They stock years from 1934 all the way to 2007. From Chevy C10 pickup truck, even Mercury Comets and Cougars, they got you covered. Specializing in body and chassis and frame components, all the way from electrical to underhood accessories, even restoring your interior from scratch. Auto Metal Direct is your one-stop shop for anything that you need when it comes to rebuilding your passion project. Pull off that cover, pull out that welder, and give my friends Eddie Sabrecco or Jason Chandler a call over there at Auto Metal Direct and say, it's time to get down, my friends. Let's get to it. Don't worry, we recycle. This is going to be a lot of verbiage, and I hope I can articulate this the way I should. I'm also not going to go about this in a way that I'm trying to teach you all how to do this, because everything is so different for different cars, and there's so many different theories out there of how you should do this. I'm just going to explain what I'm doing on mine and why I think this makes sense for this. So when I got the engine in here, I did a lot of playing with this, and we are now 3 degrees down. So the transmission's down like this. 3 degrees, and I haven't set my pinion angle, but right now we are hitting the upper part of the firewall somewhere, and then this, as you guys notice, is hitting I can't go any lower because our steering linkages. So this thing is kind of at home where it has to be, but I can't let it sit there because I don't want to have 3 degrees downward. Not only will the oil pan hit the bottom of this and vibrate how tight it is, so we're gonna have to do some fab work. And what I'm thinking is this: manipulate the pan and do something with this down here in the middle of the frame to drop the front down. That way we can get less angle, or we have to go in the firewall or the tunnel and remove meat so we can angle this back up. I want to get this thing as tight as I possibly can to a degree or degree and a half. There's a lot of different people who have varying ideas of what you should have. I think for this thing I'm going to try to get everything as close as I can to a degree and a half of opposing angle. So if the transmission's pointed down, it's only a degree and a half instead of right now being 3. So I have to do this. I have to, and I have 2 obstacles, the floor and the frame. But we're going to have to take meat out of something to make this all work. And also, I think the floor is going to have to come out because I don't like how tight this all is. This is going to be a nightmare when it comes to me making headers. So that gives me the idea. If I take the floor out and I jack it up, get the transmission closer to me, I can also bring the engine up. But we also have to check our pinion height to make sure that we're not way too far off. This is a really small car, so it's not like it's a truck and it's going to be aggressive, but I want to make sure our pinion angles are all perfectly in line. So let me wrap my head around that. I hope that's not too much word vomit. But what we're going to do now is level everything out, get it tuned in. This is going to be a big feat, so let's dive in. All right, first we're going to give a little shim in our oil pan. I need to get this off the ground or off our frame rail. I'm going to put some of these shims underneath the pan to get this slightly over our steering. That way we don't have any kind of interruptions when I'm figuring out my math, because I don't want to mess with it too much later on. Ooh, there you go. All right, I got it slightly spaced off our steering geometry here, but I think we're still gonna have to go up more. But for now, I'm gonna put it up in the air. I wanna see how far off we are from this crank to the diff and height. This next test is gonna tell me where exactly in space we are with everything. This is gonna give us a roundabout of how I'm gonna manipulate things and what direction I'm gonna take. So from here, 13 5/8 to center line. All right, so we are at 10 1/8. And our pinion angle is down 4 degrees. Oof. All right, so we're way out of whack. I'm gonna set my pinion angle first. I'm gonna go 1.5 degrees down just to give me more of a base, try to get it closer to 0 because right now it's way too far down. Then we'll measure it again and then actually do our math. All right, also check this, so we're 4 degrees down as well. So we are way off on everything. So now that I have these measurements, let's figure out a game plan of how we're gonna get here. One thing we do have going for us is wherever we're at right now, we have just a minimal pan below our surface area. It's almost like that truck pan from the Gen 1 Coyote was perfect. 9 3/4. I drew things out on my program. I have a mock-up block, my transmission in length compared to what it is to the crank snout. And there's my little old diff. We have very extreme angles going on. 4 degrees down. Now we know this too because we kind of just threw things in there. I put the suspension in a few episodes ago, but I just threw it together. It's centered, but it's not set with a pinion. Engine's 4 degrees downward. My diff's pointing 4 degrees downward. They're actually almost in line, 3.5 to 3.875, almost in the same level, but I have to change these angles. I have to take some degrees out of this. I have to take some degrees out of this. So I think we're gonna work on this one, like I said before. Now, as I'm looking at it, we are starting to hit stuff, so I have to figure out where is the meat come out of. So if we were to add transmission angle upwards, we're gonna hit our tunnel. And then the next thing is what these dimensions call for is actually this engine coming down. But I'm running out of room. It's getting real tight to all this. And then plus this pan is, you guys can see it, it's right below this. So this is like a danger zone. I have to build like a skid plate. What I wanna do is I wanna sink the engine down. I would like to lower it, but now this really is gonna be a street car that we're gonna use. So there's a lot of pros with the engine having it lower. Lower center of gravity, handling characteristics of it will go up. Brings me to this. I would have to chisel out most of this. I would have to alter the pan. And then there, I have to take out much of the meat from here. And then it kind of brings me to a point where I still have a pan that's too low, which would mean a dry sump. So yeah. I mean, if I had it my way, I would put a dry sump on. I would knock and kick the back of this lip off, ditch the stock Chevelle stuff, and then make everything else work with tubes. But I kind of have to think about a way that we could do this for, yeah, that's a tough one. That's where my heart goes, but I don't want this to turn into the El Camino. I want this to turn into a car that we can actually use quickly. The way we're talking now, I'm talking about months of me cutting and fabricating. So, let's think. The other idea is we raise that transmission up, we get it close to 0 to 1 degree down, and but that's going to put the transmission a little higher. So we'll have a steeper transmission angle for the shaft itself. So what do we do? What can we do here? Let me play with this. I'm going to change the pinion angle in the back, see what that comes to, because maybe if that comes up even higher, it'll make sense for us to keep everything here and just jack the transmission up. So let's go with that first. I just popped off my upper control arm mount. I am going to go ahead and adjust this one and get this pinion up and straight. And I just factored in how much I jacked the carb because I added some. We got posts everywhere, so don't worry. And a jack and another one. So let's go ahead and get this off, put another jack under here, and get this to start tilting upwards. What we're gonna do is now spin this out. 1, 2. Try that. So now I opened this one on the passenger side, 3 clicks. I only did 2 on this one. I took out 2 degrees already. I'm gonna put it back on the ground and check it. But I gave myself a little bit more on this because the wheels were a little offset this way by 1/4 of an inch. So I'm gonna try to move the rear end over. So it's a pain in the butt, but I'm gonna set it, put the bolts in, and then we're gonna go ahead and put it on the ground, measure everything again and see if we have to work into it more. Maybe we got it the first try, but I'll probably have to do it again. So let's try it. Okay, so we got 1.5. Before this was about 1/4 inch off. Now we got almost close to 1.5. So we're closer to where we have to be there. So maybe 1 extra click. But unfortunately, I don't think we did enough damage to our pinion. We are still at almost 4 degrees. So I'm gonna go ahead, repeat that process. This time I'm gonna go 3 turns outward and 2 times on this one. 1, 2, 3. I did 4 on the opposing side and 3 on this. This is going to help the rear end come this way and also help with our pinion. Now we're in the air, so we really can't see if we're there, but we're looks promising. Now we're at 91.7. Let's put it on the ground and see where we're at. Before, we're at almost -4 when we first started this, so we're getting closer and closer. Ooh-wee. All right, let's see, final check. We're at 1.5. Boom, boom. Let's see if we solved our offset problem. We are at 1.5. Boom, boom. Then let's see if we solved our pinion angle. Ooh, golly, 1.9. I might put a little bit more of a twist to it, but 1.9, well, let's work backwards. At least we're way better off. Rear end is centered. We have 2 degrees, let's say, pointing down, which means we should set our transmission, and we have ourselves a spot. So let's start working on figuring out how we're gonna get some adjustment out of our trans. What I think I'm gonna try to do is set engine and trans at 0, this at -2. So when this thing crawls up at high speed, it's equal with what we got here. So now we know we need to go up. So that means I got to trim some fat around it. So I'm going to start looking, seeing what we have to take out, and start removing any metal and start getting this thing situated. This took a bit of time, but from there I went and actually stripped all the interior parts and all the mechanical stuff that we had in the Chevelle before. The electronics, the seats, the front seats, anything that we had that would burn up, because it's time to start cutting. You know what time it is. It's time to pull the motor. 482 times. Well, I hope we don't have to do it that many times. That would suck. Time to rip out that Coyote again and make sure we don't do any damage to the transmission on our next step. I made a few marks under the tunnel and I measured, and I made a very rough square box. And what I'm going to do is just trim this out lightly, then go ahead and tape over this later on and make everything square. Once we cut this hole out, we'll have all the freedom we want to raise that transmission and lower it and have enough space where nothing hits. Golly, we are committed now, my friends. We are rootin' tootin' Coyote boys with that hole in the floor. I can't take that hole out and just put a regular engine back in it, so we're in it now. 100% committed. Here we go. Oh boy. Things... Jeez. I'm gonna go ahead and tape the marks off. I always get squarely with my first cuts, so I'm gonna go ahead and square it, make it nice. I'll trim that up, and we can come to the next part. What the heck we're gonna do with this frame? So we know all the geometry of this frame is perfect, but I also need the structural integrity of all this. So how do we meet in the middle? This right here is kind of the game changer for why I haven't decided to zip it all off. I would have to do a lot of work to make sure all this is perfectly... You guys see my last videos on lasers and weeks of just doing tubes and making sure everything's nice and tight. I can't slap it together, so what I'm thinking of doing is a hybrid. I need to remove this meat so I have the headers and they can flow through and I can really build a nice piece. I come in here and see where I sanded before, I rip all this out. We cut, and I rip all this out. We'll blend all this. I need to get some meat forward to remove this, and then we come all the way up. We take this whole chunk out. All right, so we put the lift back in, not for what you thought. We're gonna do a little lasering. See if we can make ourselves a scribe line. My eye line is never as good as a laser, so I try to use it as much as I possibly can. And it's not meant to be upside down, so please forgive me. It's gonna be sporadic here. I'm gonna get these 2 focal points right here. I don't know if you can see them. The edge of my Rytec upper control arms. And then once I get here, I'm gonna scribe it in. Then from there, I'm just going to scribe in a line in the chassis and just give myself a telltale so I can follow it when I cut. If you are a die-hard Chevy enthusiast, then you get a little squeamish, I would turn away now. Please forgive me. We are going to begin cutting now. So during this process, this seemed like the only way that I could go. I didn't want to compromise on any of the geometry or the heights of anything that I'm doing moving forward. But on that note, I don't know if this is going to be the actual way out of this. I feel like I might have to cut all of this, but I kind of wanted to work my way into it, look at it, come up with a design. But for now, I had to start removing some material so I can get this engine in here and actually have it sit right.
Toodaloo. Bye, Frank. Oh man, I'm going back now. Here we go. Toodaloo, frame.
All right, so now that we got the top off, I want to start trimming this back. I couldn't get all the way through to it without taking the top off, so now I'm going to use a laser and give myself this, and luckily there's some dirt. And we're just going to scribe as close as we can to that lower control arm without doing any damage to it. I'm going to make this flat because I think making it will be a lot easier, making a back plate that's not all contoured. Plus, I want to get more meat out. It's about as close as I can get to that lower control arm without nicking it. So let's swipe this off and then we'll have our foundation we can start prepping. But look how much more room we just got. And I just tested it with the sway bar on. We don't have any load on this thing. I tried bouncing it around and we're doing good so far. So I'm gonna watch as I get into this one, keep on taking measurements to make sure it doesn't start folding on itself. But I think we have plenty of meat here holding it while I trim this back. Now that we got it all cut, I'm going to go ahead and deburr the edges on the outside so I don't cut my hand. Then I'm going to do a little sweep, and I'm going to contemplate my life to make sure I'm making the right decisions, because at this point, I feel like I went a little too far. All right, it's time to test it, see how our clearances are, but I wanted to put a little pedestal on it here, just so we don't pop any pressure on this, because we can't put a load on it yet with the engine on it. So we got a little doohickey. Ooh, look at that hairdo. All right, let's see what we got, boys and girls. Let's see if we got enough room out of this whole thing. If the deed's been done, if we did the deed, we can get this thing in first. I'm gonna kick it. Oh boy. Whoa, hey. Whoa. Haha. I can do it all by myself like a big boy. I don't need any help. I used to crawl under this thing 100 times to get that, to do that. Now I can just... Let's see what we got for angle. This is how it was before. So it should be at 4 degrees. 95.6. It's almost 6 degrees. Let's try all 3. These are just the shims. Oh, God. Almost there. All right, one more, then we'll lower this thing. 3 shims in the back and the block. Me lowering this equate to 0. Oh, that's it. We can play with that now. 1 degree downward slope. Ooh, 0.8. All right. I'm gonna go ahead and adjust this, but look, it's a good thing we took out all that meat. In the beginning, I thought I took too much out of the firewall, but look, we're already hitting. Ooh. So, yeah, we should have trimmed some more. If you guys stuck around that long, you're absolute legends, and I am sorry that I have to end the video so quick, because I'm actually missing a bunch of stuff that I feel comfortable with to actually finish this. I don't have the front accessory drive. I don't have the thing that we're gonna be using to make boost. I don't have the stuff that's really kind of gonna guide the ship on how I cut the rest of this. Now, part of me thinks I'm gonna have to lob it all out and make some sort of a tube structure, hoping I can make it work so we can get this thing done a little bit quicker. But I'm gonna wait for the parts to come in. I don't wanna rush this process. I really wanted to get started with you all, get the ball moving. And on the next episode, when we dive back into this, I'll actually show you how I set everything up correctly and kind of guide you in why I picked it. I'm either gonna be doing a flat trans with a 2 degree downward slope of the rear end, or I'm gonna be lodging the transmission down 1 degree and coming up 1 degree. But we're gonna kind of figure that out and explain it more once we get there. Honestly, I just have to wrap my head around how I'm gonna get this thing spatially set. But yeah, thank you guys for tuning in. Thank you guys for liking the channel. If you guys really dig what I'm doing, like and subscribe, hit that notification thing that goes ba-ding, so you guys can see when the videos come out. And on that note, I'm gonna clean up and start doing some work in the background to get this thing rocking and roll. I'm gonna strip the cage, strip the floors, and really start prepping. And we're actually gonna be doing some bars as well coming forward for some stability. So I got my work cut out for me. And yeah, thank you guys for tuning in. All your positive love really means a lot. And I'm glad, I hope you guys are digging what I'm doing. So yeah, so on that note, I'll see you guys soon. I'm gonna go take a nap. Hey, toodaloo.